What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets Central Podcast, episode 73, where I am here to discuss the latest that happened between the Mets and the Baltimore Orioles as the Mets unfortunately fall in the series, losing 2 out of 3 games. They will take on the Royals before the All Star break, which we'll talk about, amongst other things. Before we jump into everything, yes, I'm doing this by myself. Matt is not here today. So if you like Matt more than me, then you're out of luck today. And I'm sorry, but not sorry. Anyway, though, I ask that you please leave a like on your way into the podcast here, whether you're watching live or on replay. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here on Met Central. And I will get to your comments, questions, and everything throughout the live stream. If you are in the live chat right now, I'm not ignoring your comments. I'm just going to get to it throughout the episode later on, or if it's relevant to the conversation at hand. But nevertheless, very frustrating series in Baltimore for the Mets, as you thought maybe from the Brewers series and the Subway series, this team was starting to get on the right track, especially with the way that they performed offensively in some of those games, because they beat up on Mizorowski a bit, in like a not like lighting the world on fire against him, but they still were able to get to Mizorowski a good amount. And then same goes for Katana too, where it was kind of like not lighting the world on fire, but they got him. And Mizorowski, I guess you could say they lit the world on fire against him just because he has been so good outside of that start. And to score 5 runs is pretty impressive, and to knock him out in the fashion they did. And then you go to the Yankees series where the offense really started to show signs of, okay, maybe they're getting out of this, whether it was getting Max Fried out of the game as early as they did despite the loss, and touching up on that Yankees bullpen, even though they've had their struggles, to actually show it is something that I took as a positive, because something that I've come on here and complained about time and time again is they're not beating up even on bad pitching. So it was refreshing to see that. And then Carlos Rodon, who has had a respectable year you know, up to that point of the season as well. And then Marcus Stroman, I mean, you should beat up on, but I thought there were finally signs of encouragement. And like Pablo was saying, we kind of got hit with a dose of reality again of, okay, maybe that was just a hot stretch and this is more of who they are yet again. And we kind of got the dose of reality, which even then, in the first game of the series, I took it as a positive that they were able to rally late and beat up on this bullpen that the Orioles have, because the Orioles bullpen is not that bad, all things considered. It's really more their starting pitching, which is concerning that they didn't beat up on them. And I said after that game, it's not sustainable to come back and win games like that time and time again. But if you're at least showing me something offensively, especially against a bullpen like the Orioles have, which again, it's not scrubs back there. Like Sir Anthony Dominguez is a hot commodity. Brian Baker, who they ended up touching up on in that first game, got traded because the Rays see something in him. Gregory Soto is a respectable name back there. Kittredge, Bautista, and Ynier Cano's having a down year, but still respectable names back there in that pen. So I took it as, okay, you were able to rally late. You got to touch up on these starting pitchers, though, especially when you're going against a 90-year-old Charlie Morton and Tomoyuki Sagano, who has not had a great year. He's really not anything that great. I thought, like, there were so many times he's just leaving his fastball right in the middle of the zone, and the Mets just aren't touching up on it because there's just no plate approach. And then even on Brandon Young, it's like he's consistently attacking the Mets low in the zone, and there's just no adjustment at all at the plate from these guys. And, that falls on both the players for not adjusting and the hitting coach for not acknowledging, hey, we're being attacked differently than the game plan might have suggested. We need to adjust on the fly here and start to realize, okay, he's attacking the lower parts of the zone. Let's jump on that, or let's lay off of these pitches that are going too low in the zone that we're chasing. However, we didn't see any of those adjustments at all. And this offense kind of went back to the status quo, which even in game one, they were 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. But again, I saw it as a positive that they were getting timely hits late. And then the doubleheader, I mean, once you saw that they were a combined, like 2 for 20, 2 for 30 in the doubleheader yesterday, that was annoying. Just once again, runners in scoring position being an issue. And it's there's plenty of blame to go all around here, to be honest with you, because I'm seeing people debate online, oh, you're an idiot if you blame Mendoza. You're an idiot if you blame just the offense. You're an idiot if you blame the pitching. To me, this is a cohesive thing where everybody gets a share of the blame because you have a manager that just feel it. I have never questioned a manager as much as I have with Carlos Mendoza this season. And I liked a lot of the things Mendoza did last season. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt even when there were mistakes last year because I felt, okay, he's a rookie manager. He's learning on the fly here. There's going to be some bumps on the road. So let's let him work out the kinks a little bit. But if these problems, and I would say it last year, if these problems happen next year, then it's going to be more under the microscope than I felt at the moment. Well, now he's making those similar mistakes, but times 1,000. I feel like because there's really no consistency with the process here, and the perfect example of that is in game number one where Clay Holmes in an outing not too long ago they had to pull him when he was at 80, 85 pitches. But then this outing, no one's warmed up while he's sitting at around 70 something pitches and he hasn't been able to go beyond 5 innings really. You have nobody ready back there in case things go south with Clay Holmes. And instead of being proactive, they were reactive on the situation. And then with David Peterson, it's like earlier in the season, it's okay that he goes 100 pitches and on foul territory, even he was talking about how sometimes these guys might go 100, 110 pitches. But then at 90 pitches, after he allows an opposite field single that wasn't even hit that hard, it's like, okay, now we got to pull David Peterson out of the game. There's just no consistency with the philosophy at all, process wise. And then on top of that, I mean, listen, the pitching is burnt. And I want to make this clear because I get the same comments all the time that the pitching is burnt because of the offense. While that is true, and while I'm not discounting the fact that there is truth to that, there is also something to be said about how some of these guys are not executing the way that they need to. Ryan Stanek in particular, which, we'll deep dive him throughout the episode. But, some of these guys from the pen not getting outs is just, or not even recording full innings is part of why the bullpen is taxed. Like, this isn't something that's just the offense and you're just in a dogfight that you have to use the best relievers. Sure, that is part of it. But when you're constantly getting guys like Rich Lovelady who can't complete a full inning of work, this is that's the predicament you have here where you have to continue to go to these other arms and it's burning the rest of the pen. And I'm just so tired of seeing like the Richard Loveladies of the world just because he throws with his left hand. You're telling me there's no right-handed pitcher better that could get lefties out than just throwing out Richard Lovelady just because, again, he throws with his left hand? Like, is that what you're telling me? Because some of this does fall on David Stearns to me as well. Because this is a team that's in a position where you have Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, and Pete Alonso. Three of those in particular in Nimmo, Lindor, and Alonso, which you could argue Lindor's year last year was better. But, for the most part, I'd say those three guys are having career years, at the very least, Nimmo and Alonso, and then Juan Soto's being Juan Soto. This is time to put pedal to the metal here. And again, it's like they're being reactive to the issue instead of proactive. And instead of addressing these areas right now and getting immediate help, they're sitting too much on their hands. And I get that Stearns doesn't want to get fleeced in a deal or anything, but there's also this other side of me in my head where I'm like, okay, if you're not going to really get aggressive and push the chips in now, when are you going to do it? Like, this is the time. Pete Alonso, you might not have next season. Who knows if you're getting this kind of season from Brandon Nimmo again? Lindor, Love him. I want him to be the captain. He's going to be 32 years old in November. There's only so much time you have with this group. And again, they are still sitting afloat. They are in a wild card spot to where I get it. But at the same time, there are certain areas where it's like these have to be addressed sooner rather than later because you can't have these bullpen games anymore. And I'm just so tired of seeing Noah McLean go out there and shove for 6 or 7 innings down in Syracuse, get 10 strikeouts. That's awesome that he's doing that down there. But why would you rather have Brandon Waddell and Justin Hageman take up 2 roster spots nonetheless? Take up 2 roster spots and not be effective instead of giving the chance to Noah McLean. I just don't see what the harm is in that. And that falls on Stearns to me. I mean, you can't blame it on anyone else. That just solely is on Stearns. And then it's also like, is there a disconnect between him and Mendoza? I'm wondering on certain things because Acuna did not have to play yesterday. Like there was no reason for Luis Angel Acuna to play yesterday. He doesn't look like a major league caliber player. And I was even upset when they called him back up. And I think they had to because of, certain things with the options or whatever. But I I don't know. There's a lot of head scratching things going on right now. And thankfully the All-Star break is coming up because I need it mentally and I think this team does because right now this team is in a spot where you need these arms to get fresh going down the stretch, most importantly. But, there's still the thing with the offense where it's just like, when are they going to start to show consistency for more than just a couple of games, for more than just a couple of series? That's kind of my thing there. But nevertheless, let's get into the series recap. Just so I could, go into these conversations a little bit further. I'm just gonna quickly take a sip of water here, and then I will start it. But I'll put the graphic up first, real quick. I apologize there. Sorry, but anyway, um, for game number one, Clay Holmes versus Brandon Young, who I mentioned before. Brandon Young, not a good year for him, and the Mets unfortunately made him look like one of the better pitchers in all of Major League Baseball. But in game number one, the bottom of the third inning, Cedric Mullins would walk. Holiday would get a single to make it a 1-0 ball game. In the top of the fifth, Brandon Young throws an immaculate inning against the Mets, which, again, just attacking the lower part of the zone, and the Mets had nothing to show for it. In the top of the sixth inning, Ronnie Mauricio would hit a solo shot to tie the game up at 1. Beatty and Nimmo with back-to-back doubles. They end up making it a 2-1 ball game. In the bottom of the sixth inning, though, the Orioles would take charge, put their foot on the gas as Holiday gets hit by a pitch. Westberg and Henderson with back-to-back singles. Ryan O'Hearn ends up hitting a double, which made it 3-2. And then Roman Laureano, potentially a Mets trade target, down the stretch here, hits a single to make it a 5-2 ball game. Jackson Holiday with a solo shot in the bottom of the seventh makes it a 6-2 game. But the Mets would show fight, which was encouraging to me. Is in the top of the eighth inning, Brandon Nimmo hits a single. Lindor makes it 6-4 with a home run, his furthest home run of the season thus far. Juan Soto gets a single. Pete Alonso ties the game at 6 with a home run of his own. And you go to the top of the 10th inning with Lindor being the Manfred man on second base. Soto would end up driving him in with a single to make it 7-6, and that would be the final scores. The Mets probably should have added more that inning, but I digress. They still won the game. You can't really complain that much. Game number two, a lot less noteworthy as it was the first game of the doubleheader and mostly notes in one inning. So, despite little notes, a lot to unpack with this game because of that one inning. But it was David Peterson versus Charlie Morton. In the top of the first inning, the Mets get runners on second and third with no outs, and they do not score at all. Yeah, just awesome. Top of the fifth inning, Brett Beatty walks, steals a bag. Tyrone Taylor makes it 1-0 with a double. And then in the bottom of the eighth inning, Colton Cowser gets a single, and David Peterson, with a questionable decision from Carlos Mendoza, gets pulled at 90 pitches for Ryan Stanek, who was also warming up for a very long time and also has been very inconsistent. And you knew, everybody knew, the second that you pulled David Peterson, Gunnar Henderson was going to pinch hit. And Gunnar Henderson grabs the bat and makes it a 2-1 game with a home run. And then Stanek allows 3 walks on 4 batters, allows a sac fly to Laureano to make it 3-1, then allows another walk, and then Mendoza finally decides to pull the plug on him. But that would be the final score, as the Mets showed really no fight in that game. 3-1 ball game final score there. And in game number 3, Brandon Waddell would get the start with a piggyback of Hageman versus Sugano in the top of the first inning. The Mets, similarly to game number 1 earlier in the day, get runners on second and third with no outs, but this time they would score. Unfortunately, though, it would be on outs, but you take the runs, I guess, as they come. Soto grounds out. Alonso had a sac fly, 2-0 by the end of that. In the bottom of the second inning, Mullins and Jackson hit back-to-back doubles. 2-1 ball game. Westberg hits a solo shot to make it 3-2. In the fourth inning, Soto walks, steals a bag. McNeil walks. Beatty hits a single to tie the game up at 3. In the bottom of the fifth inning, Henderson hits a single. Laureano walks. Cowser hits a single to make it 4-3. Urias scores from an error, which made it 5-3. And then in the bottom of the sixth, Jackson hits a double. A fielder's choice brings in a run to make it 6-3. Henderson with a single. O'Hearn walks. Laureano brings in a run on a force out to make it 7-3, and that would be your final score of the ball game. Definitely a lot of questionable things throughout these games. So, number 1, let's talk about game number 1. So again, the decision with Clay Holmes was certainly a choice, to say the least. And the thing that annoys me with the Clay Holmes thing as well is 2 different things. One, what I laid out earlier, where he got pulled from the 80 to 85 pitch mark during a start recently, and then he goes out there with no one warming up behind him, with the top of the order coming up. The other issue I have is how many batters they let him face before pulling the plug on him, because he hits a batter, allows 2 singles, and you would think, okay, maybe you pull him now. Then allows a double, which made it 3-2. Okay, maybe now you pull him. And then Laureano got a single, and then they finally actually pulled him. And again, Richard Lovelady is the guy they go to, which he got some help from the defense with Terrence picking off a runner at third base, amongst other defensive help. But just again, very strange, the questionable decision making there from Carlos Mendoza, which again was just a theme throughout this. In the bottom of the seventh, too, like I was fine with Carrillo being in there, but they ended up winning that game, so it's not a big deal. And I do want to pull this comment up because this is kind of the point that I was thinking about, and I brought up after that post game, that Clay Holmes is a long reliever, can't go past 5 innings, and that should be a red flag. I'm starting to be of the camp where I think it might be better to get 2 starting pitchers come the deadline and have Clay Holmes be in the pen. And I was one of the biggest advocates for letting him stick in the rotation and letting this thing ride out, but it's getting to a point where the guy can't go beyond 5 innings. And it has now been 5 straight starts of him going south of 6 innings. He's just constantly hitting these walls now. I just really feel that there's, I don't know. Like, I get that they're going to want to keep him in the starting role, but to me, I think your best bet is to let him go back in the bullpen and to acquire 2 starters come the deadline, because the workload's clearly catching up to him. And it's rightfully so. Like, I don't blame Clay Holmes for the fact that there is such thing as fatigue. He has not thrown this many innings in the major leagues before. The last time he threw this many innings in general in a season was in the minor leagues back in 2018 with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And even then, he's going to exceed the innings that he threw then. He might exceed the amount of innings he threw in 2016, which is the career high that I could find here, down in Double A, where he threw over 136 innings. It's a lot to ask for a guy that you're relying on to go out there and be one of your more reliable starters, just especially because of the unfortunate injuries that you've had to this rotation. Which it sucks that that's where we're at, because right now, like, you would be able to live with what Clay Holmes gives you if you had a healthier rotation, which they're going to start to get healthy and that helps. But I'm starting to think that maybe the best route is to go out there and acquire two starters come the deadline and then move Clay back to the pen. You guys could tell me if I'm off base with that, but that's just my opinion, and that's the direction that I'm leaning towards them going in. Nevertheless, though, game two and game three, a lot more to dissect in those games because those are the losses, and obviously there's more to discuss with the losses. Number one, Jesse Winker got hurt again in this game. So after popping out in his first at bat of the game, we would not see Jesse Winker again. He got pulled for Mark Vientos. I don't know what the story's going to be. I'd imagine later or right after the episode ends, because that's just how this goes with podcasting. I'd imagine Jesse Winker's going on the IL because it was apparently back soreness, which that typically leads to an IL stint. And this goes back to the conversation that I had during the offseason. And again, I don't want to do this as a I'm right, I told you so type of segment. I'm doing this because it was so obvious that the platoon DH thing was not going to go well. And it's not just because of the fact that, again, you can't predict injuries, but at the same time, there's something to be said about two guys that have had injury concerns in the past, more so Marte than Winker, of course, can't play the field and are not necessarily even great with the bat. I never was a fan of going into the year with the platoon DH, and now you might have both these guys injured to where you got to scramble. And all I could say is this team better be in the market for a DH come the deadline. And if not, come the offseason, they should be throwing the bag at Kyle Schwarber. Because it's so exhausting, this platoon DH thing. And I get Marte wasn't performing too bad before he got injured. I get everyone loves Winker personality wise, which is great. I do too. I love Jesse Winker, the person, the personality, how he loves being a Met and everything. But there's something to be said about the fact that you need a real DH. And when this offense is starving for production as is, and now you have both of these guys hurt and they weren't even performing well to begin with, it's a glaring thing where it's like, this should have been addressed. And this goes beyond blaming just Stearns to me, because multiple regimes have had the opportunity to address the DH spot. It's been 5 years since the DH has been in the National League. And I know 2021, there was that time where they went back to the pitchers hitting and then they changed it back, whatever. But either way, you've had 3 to 5 years to figure this thing out. And every year it's platoon DH, and more platoon DHs. I'm hoping come the trade deadline, they're in the market for the Josh Naylors of the world or someone in that realm, because I'm tired of watching these guys go out there as the platoon DHs. And now we got to see Mark Vientos DH going forward. And he had some good at bats in that first game, but then again, it was kind of like the rest of this offense, where back to the status quo. And in game number 2 yesterday, he ends up going 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. So just very, very frustrating yet again. And then in that game number 1 of the doubleheader, game 2 of the series, The decision to pull David Peterson is still wild to me. An opposite field single, and they decide to pull him. David Peterson has been the most consistent starter in this rotation. Good for him making the All-Star game. And the other thing that bothered me was going to Ryan Stanek there. And I get it. Again, I get people do not want to blame Ryan Stanek because of the fact that, well, the pitching is ran into the ground and all this other stuff. But all I could say is this. Ryan Stanek has been one of the most inconsistent relievers in this bullpen. You do not know what you're getting from this guy on a game-to-game basis. And if it were up to me, I would have preferred either Reed Garrett or Huascar Brazaban in that spot. That would have been my preference. And just give me 1 second, guys, as I take a sip of water here. Anyway, though, um, like I was saying, I would have preferred Huascar Brazaban or Reed Garrett in that spot because at least those guys have been a lot more consistent than what you have got from Ryan Stanek. And the hard hit contact nonstop from Ryan Stanek. And then this too. I mean, he's just not the pitch is going in the dirt. The writing is on the wall there. And the fact that his splitter has not been as effective this year, nevertheless not being utilized as much as it normally has. You're not getting the swing and misses that you were getting from him in October down the stretch last year. I did not agree with the decision to go to Stanek there. If you were even, I didn't agree with pulling him because even the Orioles broadcast, because I saw their version of the broadcast when this happened, and they were questioning the decision of why are they pulling David Peterson? You knew Gunnar Henderson was going to come up if you pulled him. You were that scared of David Peterson going against Luis Vasquez? You're telling me Ryan Stanek versus Gunnar Henderson was a better matchup than David Peterson versus Luis Vasquez? No. Just stop it. You could blame the offense, which is right because the offense needs to score more than one run against, again, 90-year-old Charlie Morton and this Baltimore Orioles team. But at the same time, both things could be true. Stanek has not executed all year. And on top of that, forget about Mendoza pulling Peterson there, which was stupid to begin with. Why is it that he was in there to just roll over? They just rolled over and died. They just let him go out there and allow walk after walk. He allows one walk. Nope, keep him in. He allows another walk. Nope, keep him in. The third walk. No, keep him in the game. Sack fly. Nope, keep him in the game. Another walk, and then they finally pull him. Like, why is it? I just don't understand the thought process from Mendoza there. And again, score more than one run. Couldn't agree more. Go do better than 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. You're not going to hear me argue that at all. The offense was putrid, did not show fight in that game. Outside of even the first inning. I mean, from the 5th inning on, they barely even got traffic on the bases. I'm not disagreeing. But I just, again, to me, the finger could be pointed at everyone in that situation. But then there's a correlation from this game 1 to game 2. So Felix Bautista pitched in that game. We go to game number 2 of the day, number 3 of the series. The Mets jump on the Orioles early, get a 2-0 lead. And then similar story where after the 5th inning, the offense did a whole lot of nothing. And again, just questionable decisions from Mendoza because why is it that you didn't use any of your better relievers in game number 1 of the day? So clearly you were saving them, but there was no urgency to win this game number 2 because you leave Justin Hagenman in for too long. You leave Brandon Waddell in for too long. Why not go to Brazaban or Garrett in that 5th inning once there's 2 guys on base, or at the very worst, when Kowser hits that single, maybe you keep the game at 1 or 2. And then at the very worst, maybe in the 6th inning, you go to them to keep the game at 2 runs, but instead they go to Rich Lovelady again. So there was just no urgency to keep them in the game. And I guess Mendoza just knows this offense isn't producing, but at the same time, similar to what he was talking about in the foul territory interview with the starting pitchers, he was also going on there and saying, yeah, well, we don't think about tomorrow's game. We got to win the game tonight. Like, that's the most important thing. Well, that did not back up those words the way that he managed that second game of the doubleheader. To me, it just, I'm not understanding the process because that's the biggest thing that you will always hear me talk about on this channel, as well as my co-host Matt. We just want good process at the very least. At least let me think of a way, okay, this makes sense. I can't think of a way to rationalize the way that he's been managing some of these games. And that's the bigger problem. Even if, again, like the offense didn't score, so even if they brought in Garrett or Brosman, it wouldn't have mattered. To me, again, the process and the principle of the efforts to keep them in the game, the effort to keep it a 2-run game, a 1-run game. That speaks volumes to me, at least. And you saved your better relievers for game number 2, and the Orioles did not have Bautista available for game number 2. Why are you not trying to go pedal to the metal in that game to win it? And it just feels like he's overthinking things right now and over managing certain situations, under managing certain situations. Just again, no feel right now for the games at hand. And it's very concerning to me. And I'm hoping that it's just because the personnel is what it is right now. And once they get guys like Rayleigh and Kranick and, Manai is coming back, Sang is coming back tonight. I'm hoping that once these guys are back and ready to go, that we're going to see Mendoza manage these situations better. But for the time being, it's very alarming and concerning to me that this is how it's going. Because I don't know if he knows this, but just because someone throws with their left hand, it does not mean that they are going to be better against lefties than a right-handed pitcher that might have better stuff. And then I've already jumped on Mendoza time and time again for the whole not putting your best reliever in Edwin Diaz versus the top of the order. I've already been down that rabbit hole of that being one of my bigger gripes with him. And I don't want to sit here and just rip on him the entire way through because I know the players like him. I know they do. And there are times that I like Mendoza. I like Mendoza the person and I like him as a player's manager, but I just want to see these things handled better. And that's just not what we're seeing right now. And then poor Rico Garcia, by the way, who's getting DFA'd, who once again had another solid outing. I don't understand why he's going before um, guys like Lovelady, Hayman, and Waddell, but sure. Which also breaking news. Thankfully, we got it now while the episode's going on. Not good news, but Winker going on the IL officially with back inflammation. 10-day IL, so we will see. And we got the full. Oh, Hagenman did get sent down. So here you go. So the roster moves that we got. Um, okay. So Kodai Sang is back. Hagenman sent down. Jesse Winker on the IL. Jared Young back up is the corresponding move. Austin Warren gets sent down after being the 27th man. And then Rico Garcia has been DFA'd. So doesn't that mean they're a roster player short? Or am I wrong there? I just love though seeing these roster moves every single day. Every day we see these freaking roster move tweets. But nevertheless, yeah, just again, weirdly managed series all around. Yet again, you're not getting enough from the bottom of the order still, which is very annoying. And it's Hayden Senger. He'll probably be gone after this Royal series because they're doing the whole roster manipulation thing with Alvarez, which fine. But are you going to get anything from Alvarez? I don't know. To be determined, hopefully. But I can tell you right now, it's very infuriating watching guys like Cedric Mullins and Alex Jackson produce at the bottom of the order for the Orioles, while the Mets just get nothing from even their top guys at certain points. Just very frustrating to watch them play this way um against a Orioles team, which we broke down going into that series. Not a good starting pitching staff. Not a good starting pitching staff at all. Very frustrating to watch that unfold. So we'll see. Jared Young up. So that probably means he's in the lineup tonight, right? Because that's my other criticism with Mendoza. I don't know why he feels like he has to use guys the second they're called up, but it's another conversation for another day. But either way, let me see what some of you guys are saying in the chat before I preview the series coming up against the Royals and then get on out of here. Warren returned and recalled. Oh, he got recalled at the same time. That would make a lot more sense. Okay. I didn't read that part of it. I was gonna say, because why are they DFAing Garcia then without a corresponding move? Okay, yeah. I see that now. All right. That makes sense. Thanks for pointing that out. Uh what bothered me uh worst case that the offense stuck in Mendoza killed the game by taking out the guy who was keeping them in the game. This was Peterson's game to win or lose. Mendoza blew it 100%. And that's the thing. Would you rather be the manager that goes down with your guy, giving your guy confidence, or would you rather make the wrong move potentially, which he did, and then you get double the blame? Just very frustrating. Particularly game one of the DH, we look lifeless at the plate, no urgency. They have no DH right now. And I can tell you right now, we're at the point where Jeff McNeil has to play center field every day because you're getting nothing from Tyrone Taylor. You need your offense. You need your best offensive lineup or your best offensive pieces out there every day at this point. McNeil's got to play center field at this point every day. Taylor's giving you nothing. And I like the way Taylor plays at center field, but this is where you are with how bad the offense is. Another podcaster said they'd be happy to give up McLean for Cabrera. No way. Yeah, no, I'm not. I like Edward Cabrera. I don't know about that one though. I would really like Edward Cabrera here though. But anyway, yeah, let me preview the series coming up against the Royals before I wrap this up here because I'm not sure if there's really anything else to unpack from this series other than the things I talked about. I mean, just in terms of other things, if you really want to point out, just like poor defense play throughout this series as well at certain points, just a lot of fundamentals that were so much better last year. I just don't know what's going on this year in comparison to that. But either way, let me get into the preview of the series coming up against the Royals. A definitely PTSD for every Met fan of a certain year that I will not say. But either way, the Mets versus the Royals. Michael Walker, the former Mets, who is 4-9 on the year with a 3.83 ERA and a 1.29 WHIP. He has not been pitching the best lately, and I know that because he was on my fantasy team and I cut him, which means he's going to throw a gem now that I cut him for my fantasy team. Versus Kodai Senga, that is your pitching matchup tonight. Kodai Senga returning from the IL, who is 7-3 on the year with a 1.47 ERA and a 1.11 WHIP. We will see how Kodai Senga fares in this outing in his return. I don't know how much they're going to get out of him in terms of volume, but hopefully we'll be pleasantly surprised with the volume that they get from Kodai Senga. Game number 2, Michael Lorenzen, 5-8 on the year, 4.61 ERA, a 1.30 WHIP versus Frankie Montas, who has the same WHIP but is 1-1 on the year, 6.14 ERA. Hopefully, you get just some good innings from Montas. That's all I'm asking for once. Just give us that. And then game number 3, I have 2 pitchers listed for the Mets because I don't know who is starting and who's going to be the piggyback option. But Noah Cameron for the Royals, who is 3-4 on the year, 2.56 ERA, 0.96 WHIP, kind of the David Peterson of their pitching staff, where gets results, just gets results. That's all I could say there. Versus one of Clay Holmes or Sean Manaea, probably both at some point going to pitch in this game, but Clay Holmes 8-4 on the year, 3.29 ERA and a 1.26 WHIP. I'd imagine he's going to piggyback Sean Manaea since Holmes has experience from the pen warming up, but Sean Manaea will as well pitch. Obviously, no stat line there. The long-awaited return for the tribal chief, the ace, some might say, of the pitching staff, whether you want to say him or Senga, but the long-awaited return of having those two in the rotation. You still have a 5-man rotation once everything is all said and done, which is where I could see maybe Nolan McLean fitting into the picture if they wanted to call him up and if they are going to run with 6 starters. But there is also a case to be made where there is an off day coming up after the All-Star break, so maybe they don't need the 6 starter, or maybe they make an acquisition between, you know, like that off day and the deadline to where they could insert a starter and not have to worry about the 6-man thing. But if they're going with a 6-man, then Nolan McLean could fit into the equation here. I don't know. Realistically, they're probably not going to call him up either way. But nonetheless, yeah, huge series coming up against the Royals to go into the All-Star break, hopefully making everyone feel better. I want them to take 2 out of 3. I think you really should be winning 2 out of 3. And in terms of just, again, looking at the pitching matchups here, I think you got to take the first 2 games at the very least. I don't know how game 3 is going to go with, the piggyback situation, but to me, you got to win tonight with Senga on the bump and Waka, who has not been as sharp lately. And then you got to just find a way to take one of these last 2 games. But we will see how they fare in this series. You guys let me know how you think they'll fare in this series. And let me know your thoughts on everything in Mets land as of lately. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the episode. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here on Met Central. And I'll see you guys in the next one.